What's up everybody, it's Izzo. Welcome to the lab and welcome to Devlog 10. For today we're working on what I call passive spawning. Basically we're going to reduce some lag by reworking how certain enemies are spawned into the world. There are three main groups of enemies we're focusing on today: the human nature, the skeletons aka extreme sapiens, and the scout bandits. All three enemies basically spawn passively at their spawn objects throughout gameplay, and there can be multiple of those objects in a given segment. Let's take a look at this clip real quick. This right here is the graveyard, and honestly right now it's really laggy because I'm pretty sure each one of these is an object. Every single gravestone is its own object and they're all counting down. So that's a little bit frustrating, but we're gonna keep going. That was a scrap recording from Devlog 8 where I noticed the lag spike as soon as the graveyard spawned in. Let me explain how the current logic works. Every faction of enemy has a certain spawn object that can potentially be removed or deactivated. Human natures have dirt mounds, extreme sapiens, the skeleton entities, they have gravestones, and scout bandits have bandit strongholds. All these spawners have individual timers that count down. When it hits 0, it spawns an entity and then the count resets and the whole thing starts over. My vision when I implemented this was to have entities spawn randomly even if they were on an interval that can be somewhat predicted, but unfortunately it's really inefficient and it makes the game lag out at certain points. Basically, as soon as the environment is spawned in, there's like 20 objects that have a property that counts down throughout gameplay. The result is that things will slow down upon certain environments generating and also just cause random lag spikes. Our mission today is to fix that. So let's get to it. Okay, so I mentioned in Devlog 9 there were two fixes that I did to the human nature, aka the zombie entity. I went over the one that actually made Devlog 8 possible, but left out the other one, which I saved specifically for this video. Originally, due to this event, I thought the problem was with each dirt mound not being processed and spawning in the human natures correctly. Spoiler alert, I was wrong, but it encouraged me to go ahead and try to implement the idea I had to fix the gravestones lagging. The idea was simple: use one counter and one object to control all of the spawners spawning. When the counter reaches 0, they loop through all of the spawners and then tell them to spawn the right entity. Honestly, that seems like the way to do it anyways, so yeah. So let's take a look at the dirt mound changes that I've already implemented. So what we got starting off is just some loop control. This is all going to come in handy a little bit later. And then next up we have the control or the management of those spawn timers I was talking about. Right here we have spawn damping, and this is going to control the main spawning of it. And then this spawn multiplier down here, that's actually a value that's used to increase the difficulty once the days increase. So we're just gonna kind of ignore that one for right now. We're gonna come down here, and then right here we have the actual events that's gonna tell the dirt mounds to actually spawn in the human natures. So when there's no dirt mounds right here, then it's just gonna tell me in the debugger that we had implemented that there's no dirt mounds, so it's resetting the count. And then when it does have dirt mounds, then we're gonna start a loop, and that loop is started, or it's processed down here. And then upon each one of the dirt mounds, we're gonna toggle a flag called spawn HN, and all that's gonna basically do is just tell it to spawn in the human nature. Down here we actually have those events to start spawning that in. So once everything is good, the object is ready, meaning like it's been processed by the saving code, so it's an object that's ready to be saved. Then we have that flag and it's checking to make sure it's on. Once it's on, then it's gonna go ahead and spawn in that zombie, and then it's gonna tag it with its ID. It's gonna give it a unique ID using the entity type, the ID of the dirt mound, and then the spawn count, which is increased upon this event running off. And then it's gonna let me know in the debugger that it spawned successfully, and that's pretty much it for that. We have this one down here just in case an object isn't ready. Just in case it's not ready yet, like a new object is being generated when that count is started, or when that count's finished, sorry. Then we're just gonna go ahead and we're just gonna tell the system that we're not ready yet, and then turn off that flag anyways. So now that we're all caught up with everything, we're gonna go ahead and start getting into how to implement the gravestones. I'll see you guys in just a second. Alright, and we got the first iteration of the new spawn logic for the gravestone going. So let me just go over what's going on. Starting off, we got that loop management going on, same thing. And then right here, we got the managing the spawn count or the timer. And now instead of it being in the gravestone or this tombstone itself, it's actually just handled in this little enemy entity collider. So yep, that's subtracted for everything. It's a little bit different from the human nature. Those are only supposed to spawn at night, so therefore it's only counted down at night. See, let's go back up. This day-night cycle, this value right here, when it equals 2, that's nighttime. But yeah, we don't need that here because we want the skeletons to spawn throughout the day, throughout the night. Then we come down here to the actual command of the spawning, basically commanding the tombstones to spawn. So down here, what happens is when that spawn damping is down at 0, and the number of tombstones is 0, then you know, nothing happens. We pretty much just reset that count and wait again. And then down here we got the second one where there is actually tombstones, so then we're going to start a loop that's going to basically loop through all of those tombstones, and it's going to command it to spawn with that new flag that we have, spawn ES, which stands for Spawn Extreme Sapiens. Down here we got the new code, we got the new events going. This one's actually the old one. Let's go ahead and delete that. And now for the new ones, what we have is we got that loop. This loop was actually started up here. Remember that TBID, like I said, it comes in handy later down here. So now using that loop, we're gonna grab the ID values as well, and then we're gonna command it to spawn, but only if that object ready flag is on. If not, then it's just gonna have that flag turned off, and it's gonna tell us that that tombstone wasn't ready yet. Remember, that only happens if it's like a new object generating in when basically that timer goes off. So now that everything has been worked out, we're ready for a quick little test. So let's get that going. Here we are in the test game real quick, and you know what we do. We're gonna loot as usual. And then we're just gonna run off a little bit. We're looking for a couple of gravestones, and the objects that I need are right here. Here's the tools in the toolbox for today. This one, the enemy entity collider, that value. It's not gonna do anything yet, and we're also gonna need the debugger. Bam. Alright. Okay, that's going for... Okay, maybe I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just have that count off only when there's gravestones in existence, because that's going to bother me. Like having that much clutter. Oh, wow. We all know what the problem is with it. Yep, see. You know, he's getting fixed before the next devlog. Before devlog 11, guys, he's getting fixed. And if not, then hold me accountable for that, because this guy's just driving me nuts. Come on, you're holding up the gameplay here. You're holding up the playthrough. This isn't even a playthrough. Come on, come on. Run into my bullets. There we go. Oh, we found one finally. Okay, let's see if this works. Gotta wait a whole... That just doesn't feel like a whole minute. Well, I mean, I guess I've been here for what, 3 minutes already? Really? Seems a little weird. I hope this works. It worked. Alright, there we go. Oh, let me just not... Okay, I just ran into him twice. But, okay, it worked. That's great. So now we can move on to the bandits. Let's just engage this guy real quick. Alright. Should we try to test the saving and loading real quick? Let's do it. Takes it a second to gather all them objects. I gotta figure that out. Ooh. Oh, I forgot. That's right. And just said something about how my computer isn't moving as fast as it should be. Alright. 10, 8, 0. Yes. Alright. That's what I like to see. Alright guys, so I'm gonna go ahead and put in those 2 changes I was talking about. First one is up here. We're gonna just go ahead and put that in there and put it above there. Okay, that's the first change. And now the second change is this. I didn't actually say this one out loud, but there's a spawn limit on each of these gravestones. It's supposed to be like basically just in case too many are around. That's why just in case too many are in one area at once, they're not supposed to spawn more than 3. So what I'm going to do now actually is I'm going to go ahead and implement that right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to check it. Watch. And that's the change right there. Basically, we just split this this one command into two, or sorry, this one event that commands the tombstones to spawn the skeletons. We split it into two different events. One that checks to see if that spawn limit is at 0. If it is, nothing happens, and it tells me that that tombstone has reached its spawn limit. And then if the spawn limit is greater than 0, that means that we can go ahead and spawn a skeleton, and that spawn limit is subtracted from. Also, one last thing to note before moving on. These are the one enemy entities in the game that do not need ID values. If you notice, we didn't have to tag it with an ID value like we did up here. That ID value is just used to bind the enemy to the specific colliders, and there are no colliders for the skeleton. They only move on one plane. That makes sense. Anyways, see you guys back here in a second. Alright guys, so before we start actually implementing that spawning into the bandit scouts, what we're gonna do first is I just need to catch myself up on what I have and haven't done so far for the actual bandit strongholds. I don't actually recall if I've ever seen a scout bandit spawned, so quickly I'm about to go ahead and get an environment that actually has a stronghold in it. We're using the haberdashery district because yep, that's the easiest and the least bugged. So yep, and then quick update. In between cuts, I did go ahead and I took out the bugged bandit. I didn't actually put it in correctly, I just took it out completely, because if there's a building that spawns them, there's not a reason to actually have them spawned over there too. So now we're just gonna go ahead and test this and see what's happening with it. There should be a spawn damping here, but it looks like yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and switch that over to 1 and see what happens. Yep, there we go. Okay, so this this value right here, that's actually a value that's used to basically, it assigns randomly whether or not there's actually scout bandits inside the building. So now that we got that timer going, now we can actually go ahead and just set it to 0. Well, I'm gonna set it to 200 just to give me a little chance to get set up. Okay, and he comes out. So that's good. So now we know that this building does actually spawn them correctly. So now we can start implementing everything. So I'll see you guys in a second. Just take this guy. Oh my god, he's stabbing me in the back. Am I losing health? Oh, he's stabbing me correctly too. That's just... Let's just go ahead and take this guy out, I guess. It won't be long now before he starts calling. Never mind. Alright, I'll see you guys back here in just a second. Alright, so here we are looking at that refactored bandit spawning code. So just to start off, we don't actually need to put in that loop because it's already here for the raid functions. And so we're just going to go ahead and use that same loop to grab the bandit stronghold when we need to. Moving on down here, what we have is that BS spawn damping right here. This is going to take over that spawn count that's usually individually managed between each bandit stronghold. Down here we have the command for the spawning, so you know, as usual, if it's at 0 but there's no strongholds in existence, then it's just going to restart that count and nothing's going to happen. However, if there are strongholds in existence, then we're going to go ahead and start this loop that's going to loop through all of the strongholds in existence, and then we're going to reset the timer as well. Lastly is the actual loop coming in, and when that loop happens, then we're going to go ahead and toggle this scout bandit spawn active flag. Down here we're actually taking care of that flag and processing it correctly. So if that, remember that scout bandit contain value, if it's different than 1, which is the number that it needs to be at for scout bandits to actually be inside the building, then we're just going to go ahead and spit out to the debugger that there's no scouts contained in that stronghold, and we're going to move on. But if it is at 1, that means that there are bandits in that stronghold. So we're going to go ahead and spawn in that bandit. We're going to tag it with the unique ID. It's going to be scout bandit plus the building type, or the spawner in this case, and then the scout bandit spawn amount, which the building will be capable of actually tracking itself. we're gonna add to that count after we do that too. That way the next enemy coming out will have another unique ID. And then to top it all off, we're just gonna go ahead and untoggle that Scout Bandit Spawn Active flag. So with all that, now we're ready for a quick test. Alright guys, so here we are in a test game, and we're just gonna go ahead and test it real quick. I'm actually already in the haberdashery district, but what's going on right now is I'm gonna add this one to the built-in debugger, and then I'm gonna keep going, and I'm gonna spawn in another one. The reason why is because I wanna also test that bandit contain value, make sure that's working right and that's processing and resetting correctly. So yep, after this I'm just gonna go ahead and run off and do it again. Alright, so here we are, and we're just gonna go ahead and add that to there, and let's see what's going on here. If any of these, okay, so let's set, wait, before we set that one to 1, let's see if this one has one that's set to 1. It's not, so let's go ahead and set that one, I guess, that way, just in case I'm not sitting around here getting pummeled. Let's see. Okay, so we have that first error being logged out correctly, that's good. Let's go ahead and come to that enemy entity collider, because nothing's gonna happen. Yep. Let's go ahead and put in 100 and see what happens. Alright, there we go. We have one scout spawned, and we have one stronghold that didn't spawn any because there's no bandit contained. So that means everything worked out correctly, and our code is a go. Alright everyone, this has definitely been a lighter devlog than previous ones. We actually completed our goal within one video instead of 2 to 3. And another plus, every time we left the game, it saved successfully. We're looking great, honestly. Plus, today we went over 3 enemies in the game. The Human Nature, aka the Zombie Entity, the Extreme Sapien, the Skeleton-like entity, and the Bandit Scout entity. I don't have a set idea in mind for the next devlog. Part of me wants to start a new game, like one that we play through for Codename All Night, now that we see that saving is more stable. And then another part of me actually wants to start working on the Bandit faction. First of all, that's where I left off before starting my super secret project, and second of all, that's also really bugged, from the raids to the second model of strongholds. But if you have a preference, drop it in the comments. I welcome, and I can use any help deciding what to do next. And thank you for joining me in the lab today. Leave a like if you enjoyed today's lab project, let me know what you think in the comments, and subscribe to join me in the lab for more experiments. Alright guys, have a good one, see you for the next one.